and they just couldn't quite make it over the peloton. They were also throwing it from like across the way, and it dinked on Annemiek van Vleuten's head.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Odd Tandem. We had another great guest today. She has won 74 national titles during a very long career. She won the 2017 Tour of Flanders for the women and also won the team time trial with her then team, Sunweb, in the 2017 World Team Time Trial Championships. So we spoke to Coryn Labecki today, but we have to take it on the chin, Yenzi. Both you and I mispronounced her name multiple times. So Coryn, we apologize in advance for calling you Coryn most of the entire podcast. But Yenzi, great lady, pretty exciting news that she has. Another great chat with another great guest.
Oh, absolutely it was. I loved her positive energy, the way she explained how she got over to Europe, how early she started riding the bikes in an interesting way, even related to the name of our podcast. And I liked her view on women's cycling, how she would grow it. It was, again, absolutely a lovely and fascinating talk with another great guest.
You know, you've got all those press passes that you've collected and kept and that your daughter organized for you behind you. Can you imagine, what do you do with 74 national champion jerseys? I mean, wow, that's incredible. So sit back and relax and listen to our great interview that we had today with Coryn Labecki. Hello, Coryn Labecki, and welcome to the Odd Tandem.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Well, Coryn, I need to say this straight up, just totally honest. I always knew you as Coryn Rivera. And then what was it, in 2021 or for the 2022 season, all of a sudden I see Coryn Labecki popping up in the results, and I'm like, who the heck is that? So, when you got married and changed your name, was I the only one that was confused, or was it kind of like, did you have to redo your name on the UCI start list and all that stuff?
Yeah, funny enough, to get my name changed on the UCI start list took 2 years. It was a whole process. But we got married in October, and I didn't have enough time to change my passport, and apparently the UCI does the start list by your passport name. So I raced a year with my passport still being Rivera, but like marriage license, social security, everything else, I was Labecki. And also on the results sheets, I was Labecki. On TV, I was Labecki. But for whatever reason, the start list, we're having the team meeting. The start list always said Rivera, and I got mad at every single race. And I finally figured out that I needed to change my passport to change my name everywhere. But I figured there's only one Coryn, and people would learn quickly that Coryn Rivera had become Coryn Labecki.
Yenzi, you probably remember this. I made my entire career, I made it through my entire career until the year that I retired, 2008. On the results, my name was Bobby Julich. And in 2008, it pops up as Robert Julich. And I got so much crap from so many people like, we didn't know that your name was Robert. Why is it Bobby? It should be Robbie. It was all, Billy Bob. I all of a sudden had all these new nicknames just because of that. And I almost made it through my whole career until that last year, just because of somebody saw my official name, and then that was it.
You probably had a
Save
middle
the best
name.
for last.
Yeah. And you probably had a middle name, right? All you Americans have middle names, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
That may have been on there as well. Yeah, Robert William Julich.
There you go. I only got one name. Poor family, we never had money for two names, so just one name's good enough for me. Hey, Coryn, before we start to get more deeper into your career, how you start and all that, we got a series of 4 quick-fire questions. I hope you are ready for this.
Hit me. Let's go.
Favorite race in the U.S.?
Ooh, in the U.S. I think Tulsa doesn't disappoint. I mean, it's 3 days of very dynamic racing, all different kinds of racing as well, different courses. And, yeah, I mean, you gotta love a twilight crit and also a bit of a hill on the last day. So it hits all the markers for me, and the crowds, of course.
What's your favorite mantra or mantras?
My favorite movie is Gladiator, and I think the quote from there is like, "What you do in life echoes in eternity." So that's something that has really stuck with me.
Awesome answer. We go deep. Awesome. Loving this. Hey, Coryn, would you trade your Tour of Flanders win for a Paris-Roubaix win?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say no, because I don't like to live with regrets, and I won that race for a reason. And I still think it's special for me. There's a lot of special meanings for that race for me, so I would not trade it.
And an easy one. Are you able to ride a horse? Are you a little bit of a cowgirl?
Yeah, I have ridden horses in the past. It's been quite a while, I think, since I was a kid, to be honest, since I last rode a horse. But I do have a Stetson cowboy hat, and I do have a pair of boots myself. So sure, I'll call myself a cowgirl.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, it's always a funny question about wild animals. Going to Europe, everyone thought we went to school on a horse just because we were from the USA. That's why I thought you put that question in there, Yancy. That's pretty funny. Coryn, please give us a little bit of a story about your introduction to cycling. I mean, I remember for a very long time, like pictures of you when you were super young and you were always around and you had a very, very long career. But what was it that sparked your interest in the sport of cycling from such a young age?
Well, I think it's great that the podcast is called the Odd Tandem, because that's actually how I ended up finding the sport, really. My parents had gotten a tandem, and my dad was always, on two wheels, really active. He played soccer, and then I got into soccer, and then he raced motorcycles and downhill mountain bikes, and then he kind of eventually settled with road cycling. And then he got a tandem with my mom. I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And then I think they tried putting me on the back of the tandem at like 8 or 9 years old. And I kind of just loved it. Like, I could be outside. I was with my parents, riding around, seeing cool places. And we had done metric centuries and centuries already when I was 9, 10 years old. And I remember a couple times I even fell asleep on my dad's back. And sometimes I was the motor eventually once I got, stronger. But that's kind of how I got into cycling, on the back of the tandem. And then eventually I got older and big enough to get a bike of my own. And then, once I found racing, the rest is kind of history.
Were you ever tempted, or did you ever try different sports? Whatever, track and field, or whatever, field hockey, judo? Any other sports you tried before, or cycling was your first and only love?
Yeah, I had been snowboarding since I was 4 years old, so that I know on the back of my hand, and I can, strap into some bindings and head down like I know it on the back of my hand. And then I had played soccer from 4 until probably 8 or 9, basically till I found the bike, and I played club in the last couple years, so I got really good and really interested in that. And then I did try a tennis camp with a cousin of mine, but it didn't really stick as well, just having to drive to a court and play or practice or whatever. But with the bike, I could just throw my helmet and shoes on and roll out. So that was something that I really liked, and it was easy to do by myself or with a lot of people, with my parents, with a tandem. So that's just something that stuck with me, and I just really liked it.
Well, doing a little research, you've won 74 national titles, from the track to the road, even cyclocross, from the juniors to collegiate to the elite level. So what was your first, your favorite, and your last national championship?
That's a good question. My first was a junior 10 to 12 time trial in 2004 in Park City, Utah. If I remember correctly, I think it was Ina Teutenberg who gave me my medal as well, who I would later work with, race against and work with, down the line. But that was my first national title. My favorite would be my first U.S. Pro Road title in the road race. I think that was 2018 that I had won it. And I had gotten second place so many times before that to try and get that title. And then I finally got it with the help of my teammate at the time, Ruth Winder. So that was a huge one for me that is really special. It's always the ones that you can't get, and then when you finally get it, you're like, that's the good one. And then my last one was last year. I won the criterium, the pro criterium in Charleston.
So, Coryn, it's only 6 to go till 80. 80 is just a nice round number, right? Did it ever tempt you to go, it's only 6 more. I'm still young. I can still...
Yeah, I mean, JV tried to talk me into doing cyclocross nationals to try and finish on 75. But I don't know. You never know. Maybe I do like a Masters nationals and round the number. But for the meantime, 74 is a good number for me.
Jeez, 74 national champion jerseys hanging in a closet somewhere. That's pretty awesome. But I also read that you raced collegiately and actually met your husband while at college. What college did you go to?
Yeah, that's correct. I went to Marian University in Indianapolis. So I'm like a born and raised California girl, but then I got offered a scholarship to ride for Marian. And also they had the major that I wanted to study, which was marketing, because I figured, my whole cycling career, I've been a moving billboard, so why not learn the other side of that? So that's what I wanted to study, and so they had that. And also my half-sister actually lives in a suburb outside of Indy, so even though I was like really far away from home, I had family out there, and also knowing that it was 4 years, so I could go back to California or stay there or move. It wasn't like a definite move. So I was totally open to that, and also the 4 seasons as well. I mean, my first Midwest winter, I got really lucky my first year, and then it slowly got worse and worse as the years went on. But no, it was one of my favorite times of my career in life, really, and wouldn't trade it for anything.
It's something that always puzzles us Europeans, how large your country is and how much you travel. Like Bobby, born in Texas, lived in Philadelphia, then in France, then he lived in Reno, that's Nevada, right? Now you're in South Carolina. Like, the furthest I ever moved is 300 kilometers, like 200 miles from my parents' place, and my siblings all stay up there. Is that just in your culture, Coryn, to move? Hey, college sounds good, I move. I mean, and we're not talking like down the street. We talking like 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles. Is that just in your culture in the US to move around for a job, for school?
Yeah, I think it's certainly an ability, but you don't have to. I mean, there's a lot of people who like to stay close to home or have a really big attachment to home. But I think from traveling and racing pretty early on for me, I just like to travel and explore and, be in other places and understand other people. And, it explains a lot how people act the way they are, and it's just really interesting to me. So I do like change, and I still pay a lot of respect to where I'm from. But I kind of like change. It's kind of nice, experience different things. And yeah, I mean, in the US, you have the ability to travel around the country. And yeah, for you, moving 300K is like staying within a state. So
Yeah,
for
I
us,
know.
it's, going from coast to coast is like going across the Atlantic, really. So it's a lot of space.
Well, in 2017, you had a banner year. We'll talk about a few of them, but I want to ask you about the Tour of Flanders. You know, you were the first American to win the Tour of Flanders. It's only been going since, I believe, 2004. Kristen Armstrong actually did get second twice, both in Olympic years in 2008 and 2012. But tell us about that day. I mean, the Tour of Flanders women, I mean, it's a mythical race. It's one of my favorite races of the year to watch other than Roubaix. But what was your experience like, and especially by winning the race?
Yeah, it's a day that's hard to forget. I mean, yeah, the stars kind of just aligned for me, and even saying that, it really wasn't, you know, a perfect day. I mean, even at the Quaremont, my teammate Ellen was trying to bridge across to the break, and I was really suffering on the Quaremont, and I was like, you know, be great if Ellen would just get across to that break and we could call it a day. But then she didn't, and then, you know, I thought we would be chasing the break back for her to do another move on the Paterberg. But in the end, it was still the main break of 4 over the Paterberg. And it was me and Ellen, and then our director just made the call, like, hey, we're going to sprint for Coryn. And then I was like, oh, shit, okay, let's do this. But, you know, I never really went into the day like, I'm going to win the Tour of Flanders. I think we had a lot of options within our team to win with different riders. So I think it was certainly the mindset, like, we are going to win Tour of Flanders. It's just, you know, the way the race plays out. How are we going to do it? Are we going to do it with Lucinda or Ellen? We even had one of our domestiques, Rosanna Slick, in the early break. She was alone, but it still set the rest of us up perfectly for the rest of the day. But so after the Paterberg, Ellen was just chasing for me with a couple others. And I remember I was like, oh, maybe I should help her. And I rolled up and I just did one quick turn, and she got mad at me. And I was like, okay, I'll stay in the back. And then we caught the break with 1 kilometer to go. And I knew Ellen had done a lot of work to catch the break, and I didn't expect her to do a lead out or anything. So I just kind of floated back to where I wanted to be. And then I was just thinking, like, oh man, it would be really cool to do like a top 10 at Flanders. Like, how sick would that be? And then Bulls kind of started their lead out in the sprint, and I just kind of went by instinct and feel and just opened up my sprint, and I got neck and neck with Chantal Block, and then we were just kind of like inching back and forth like the whole last 200 or 300 meters or whatever it was. And then I kind of got clear from her, and then I was just waiting for someone to pass, and I was just like itching to the line. I was like, when's this line coming? It needs to be here now. Yeah, nobody passed, and then I crossed the line, and I was like in complete disbelief. And probably one of my worst post-ups. I mean, I've done a lot of post-ups in my life, and just covering my face is not my favorite one, but I think that's just how absolutely shocked I was. So yeah, it was a special day, and then my husband and dad were there, so I got to see them after the finish line a little bit later on, but it was just a really, really special day, all in all.
And it makes it even better, right, to have family there, right? I mean, Bobby and me, when we finished Tour of France in Paris, and, you know, our wife would be coming, it was always extra special, right? Any wild party after that, or you had a quiet dinner with your husband?
Well, my dad really wanted to go to this steakhouse in Oudenaarde that the chef is Filipino, and we had made good friends with them like earlier that week. But I think they were really booked. We ended up just staying in the square in Oudenaarde, getting bitterballen and frites and beers. Nothing crazy, but just something to celebrate a little bit.
Well, another great result that you had in 2017 was as a team in the team time trial with Sunweb. You guys, you were a member of the World Championship winning team time trial squad. Your bio says that you're 1 meters 55 tall and you weigh 47 kilos. And, you know, we know you as a sprinter. So how did you adjust to doing a team time trial and becoming world champion? I mean, I see that you actually won multiple team time trials. So we're always told that sprinters can't do team time trials, but you kind of proved everybody wrong, didn't you?
Yeah, that's something that I actually really love to do is proving people wrong. But yeah, at the beginning of this whole team time trial story, I wasn't even in the picture. I even asked like, oh, should I do the team time trial training? They're like, no, like your size won't help, and it's okay. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I don't need to overstep. I know my place. I'll continue doing what I'm good at. And then I had a schedule change, and then I was meant to do Tour of Norway and not the Giro, and I had a schedule change, and then it ended up flopping. So I didn't do Tour of Norway, and I did the Giro, and the Giro had a team time trial in it. So I had to do some training for that with the team, and then also race. And I think the girls just realized, and also the director realized, that I was actually quite good in the team time trial, regardless of my size. I could still bring a lot of rest to the group. And I think also just doing these, pulls between 10 seconds to minute and a half, and to recover from that, I was really good at that type of effort. So it's not necessarily, time trialists that actually do good in team time trials. It's, just the repeatability and your ability to recover. So I think from that we learned that I was actually quite good within the group, and also I kind of offset Ellen, because Ellen was so tall and so strong. Yeah, I think she was behind me, so it kind of smoothed out the ride, whereas before I think she would hit the front and really try to bring the speed up, but it in the end would just kill everybody, and I kind of mellowed her out a little bit with not having much of a draft.
In men's time trialing, the tendency is have these massive chain rings. Apparently Joshua Tarling did a 68 chain ring at the time trial in the UAE. Is that the same development in women's cycling? The women using bigger and bigger front chain rings as well?
I think it's heading in that direction, definitely, as the sport gets more professional and the top gets higher and higher. At my time when I was doing the time trial stuff, I think at most we were running 54, 55. It all depends on the course too. Mm-hmm. But I think it's definitely heading in that direction. I mean, how much faster can you go with the gear that you have? You'd have to be pedaling so much faster. So if you get a bigger gear, then you can do the same cadence going faster. So it's just kind of like simple math as the sport continues to grow and everybody continues to get stronger. So I think it's just a matter of time till we are also running 68 tooth chain rings.
Yeah, those photos from Josh Tarling in the UAE tour and a lot of guys nowadays, from the side, it looked like he not only had a front wheel and a rear wheel, but then a wheel in the middle, but that was his chain ring. It was so big. Insane. But, Jens and I were a big fan of the team time trial. Obviously, you are. But would you like to see more of these in women's races, especially the 3 Grand Tours for the women?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely adds another level of complication to logistics and training and whatever else. But honestly, it's one of the purest forms of teamwork. And the other form of teamwork that I really love is sprint leadouts. When everyone has to go all in for a sprint leadout, that is unmatched in other areas of the sport. But the team time trial is really cool, and I was actually quite sad that they had changed the format for World Championships from the trade team time trial to what it is now. But yeah, it's the purest form of teamwork for everyone to see how fast 8 people or 7 people, whatever it is, 6 even, can go over a certain distance. So it would be really neat to bring that back, and I think it adds a great dynamic and dimension to a Grand Tour.
Would you ever have considered to actually become an advisor for the UCI, work for them, or become a sports director and stay really close involved in cycling? Or you like your life now as it is? As a reminder to our viewers and listeners, Coryn just retired 31st of December 24, right? So you are 1.5 months into retirement. Do you enjoy your life the way it is now, or you want to go back and maybe change or help to make women's cycling bigger and better again?
Yeah, I think for now I need a little bit of a break. I'd love to be home more. It's kind of what I've been missing, I think, just being on the go so much. It's just nice to be in one place for an extended period of time. It's not something that I've had probably since I was 8 years old. So before I started racing and traveling and everything. So it is just really nice and refreshing to be at home more, even though it's only been a month and a half. But I think, yeah, I certainly would love to help more when the time's right, and then I feel ready to really jump in and do more. But certainly I'm not going to go very far from cycling. I am coaching now with EF coaching, so I still have my foot in the sport, and I always will. But yeah, certainly I think directing would be probably a position for me that I think I would really love and be good at. But not quite ready to travel more than I did as an athlete.
Well, we've mentioned traveling a couple times. Your first trip to Europe, it's a monumental thing for any American. Where was your first trip to Europe, and how old were you when you went there?
Yeah, my first trip to Europe, I think I was 16, racing age 17, and we were lucky enough to do a women's block, a junior women's block in Belgium. USA Cycling at the time had a house that they were staying at in Izegem, Belgium. And they had never had women there before, and I think we just had a really strong generation of women racing at the time, and they sent, I think, 4 or 5 of us there. So that was my first time racing in Europe, and we did some kermesses, I think, in Belgium. I think we were there for a month. But I think I don't really remember what other races we did. All kermesses, but I remember winning one of them for sure. And podiuming at another, but we had a good time. It was really exciting. Everything was new, and I just love the cutthroat type of racing. I think we were so used to somewhat gentle criteriums in the US, and then you get thrown in the fire in Europe, and you're like, oh, all right, this is racing, and I like this.
Just remind me with the timeline. When you went there, was that before internet, or could you just send a quick email or mobile phone back home, or was that still in the
She's
time?
She's not as old as us, Jensi.
Did you have to say that, Bobby? Did you just have to say that? Because I remember in my early years, I used to write the fax, go to hotel reception and send the fax. But you already had internet and email, so you could avoid being homesick. That's actually where my question is aiming at that age, by contacting mom and dad on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think at that time it was 2008. I think my junior years was 8 and 9, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I had my first cell phone when I was 12, so at that point I had it for 4 years. I don't think I was still on the BlackBerry though. I didn't do an iPhone until college, I believe. But yeah, we were able to text home and call home if we needed to. But I think the trip was so short, and I was just so enthralled by being in a new place and learning so many new things. And I did a training ride with one of my friends who went on the trip, Katie Antoneau at the time. She's now Katie Keogh. But we were like, oh, we got to ride to Bruges. We got to ride to Bruges and then find our way back. And, like, we didn't have Garmin's with maps and stuff, you know? And here we have, like, 2 16, 17-year-olds, like, just riding around in Belgium on the roads trying to figure out our way to Bruges and then back. And I know we got lost a couple times, and we kind of bonked and had to, like, stop at a gas station to get more food. But we made it. So I think it's just funny to think back. I didn't have to send a fax, but we also didn't have, the GPS capabilities that we do now, and to figure out how to ride to Bruges and back was just following the signs on the road.
Well, talking about, ironically, following signs on the road, Filippo Ganna from Team Ineos Grenadiers won the stage in the Vuelta Algarve because he kind of went the right way when all the other peloton was on the other side of the road. I've never seen this, and I was watching it live. And it did seem like you see one guy with like maybe five behind him on the right side of the road. And then on the other side of the road, you see the entire peloton. And it looked like they were sprinting, thinking that they were still on the right side of the correct side of the road. Okay, we've never seen anything like that happen. But what's the strangest thing that you can remember happening during your career?
A couple that stand out that, I mean, I think it's happened a time or two before where, yeah, you kind of take the wrong way in the race, or like you accidentally take the deviation. Like that's definitely happened throughout my time. So it just hasn't happened as dramatically as it did today for a finish like that. But I did remember once seeing like someone like trying to toss a bottle into like the waist zone, and they just couldn't quite make it over the peloton. They were also throwing it from like across the way, and it kind of like dinked on Annemiek van Vleuten's head. And she was just like, oh, what the heck was that? Where'd it come from? It was just someone like tossing a bottle, and of course it like perfectly like nailed her right on the top of the helmet. So I thought that was kind of funny. And then I remember I was racing for the national team in Chongming Island. I don't even know what year, but I wasn't on a world tour team yet, but I was doing a trip in China. And I remember someone did a snot rocket, and Judith Arndt was still racing. And this snot rocket like hit her right on the leg. And at that time, it's like, you know, everybody knows who Judith Arndt is. And she was pissed. She wasn't having it at all. And so Judith Arndt went up to this rider who did the snot rocket, looked at her and told her that what she did, and asked her to wipe it off her leg. And the rider just went in and like wiped it off the front of her shin, and then all was good. But I was like, oh, that's a pretty big power play, that you can just cruise up to the person that did the snot rocket and say, wipe your shit off me.
I'm interested because I met yourself and your husband Nathan down at the I think it was the Athens Twilight or some criterium that you guys were at last year. Mm-hmm. And I think you guys drove out there in a van. And anyway, like he's your husband. You guys met in college. You've known each other for quite a while. I've always been curious, are men as supportive to their female partner as like Jens's wife and my wife were supportive to me? Because I mean, they lived and died for us, you know. They'd pick up the pieces and, you know, keep us, you know, down when we were up and up when we were down. But I've never really asked that to a female where the roles are reversed and her husband is the support squad. So how is old Nathan with the support crew?
No, he was really great. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do what I did without his support. And yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what though, I'm still in charge of laundry, so that's still my thing. that still falls under my umbrella of things to do. But I like to do it, so I don't let him do it. But yeah, going to Europe a lot and being away from home, I think that was really tough on us. But you know, I think we did quite well. And some of his work situation later on in my career, like he could travel to Europe more and be with me, but definitely a lot of sacrifices made in terms of being apart and making it work. But yeah, I think we did quite well, and he was always there to support me. And to be honest, like a lot of, well, not a lot, but some of my training rides, like he would do with me. So I think that's maybe something that's different in your guys' situation. Like I don't think your wives were doing training with you at all. So I think that was cool because it was something that we could do together. And Nate, he had raced professionally in the U.S. Doing more criterium, so he's got like a better sprint on him, and like shorter efforts. So some of my sprints, you need someone to kind of go up against, and so we would do sprints together sometimes. Or we got a scooter a couple years ago, so then he would go out and motor pace me as well. So things like that, really sport specific related support you would do. And then every now and then when I'm really cracked and I just need some food ready, like he'll definitely get food ready for me. So I think we share the cooking responsibility in the house 50-50.
Hey, Yenzi, real quick, I got a question for you. Did Stephanie ever take you out behind the scooter?
No. She was just terrified that she would crash me. Not that she couldn't, but she would be just terrified that she would crash me.
I don't think any partner, spouse should motor pace their partner or spouse, because I had Angela do it a few times, and of course she doesn't know what she's doing, but like we're like, just keep a steady speed, and then all of a sudden she goes down. And it is by far marriage counseling 101. Do not allow your partner to motor pace you, because you just come back frustrated and in a fight. So a little pro tip there for the up and coming generation: pay somebody else to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, not all of our motor pace sessions ended in a good mood, but to be fair, Nate's pretty good at it. So it was only a handful of times where we were just kind of getting used to the motor and everything, or the road was like too up and down, hard to stay steady, where we'd come home and be like, what the hell was that?
So true.
But Coryn, now that you're retired, you and Nathan, you're about to add more happiness to your family life, right? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we are expecting. It was not the reason for my retirement, but it's certainly a plus, and we're really excited to welcome a girl to the world come June.
That is so fantastic, and everything is going nicely. She's talking to you and in contact with you, and everything works fine?
Yeah, everything has been really good and smooth so far. I haven't been too sick, so we can only be grateful and happy.
Well, congratulations on that. Congratulations
Thank you.
that. But now that the days of pinning numbers on your jersey are over, what piece of advice would you give to the young women, or maybe your daughter when she comes of age to race bicycles, about getting into cycling or think about getting into cycling?
Yeah, it's funny. I did like a retirement video with EF and kind of asked me like a similar question. And also now being a coach and also coaching other women, the advice that I would give. And I think it's just to not be afraid. Like if you want to do something, just do it. Don't be timid or unsure or like without any confidence. Like if there's something that you want to do, just do it. Like usually the only thing holding you back is your own head. So just go for it is what I would say.
And what was the biggest thing you learned in your career, traveling, racing different countries, something you could take away now into your life after cycling? Is there anything that comes to your mind where you go, that was a good little thing I learned in my career?
Yeah, I think just to know that, no 2 days are the same, or no 2 years are the same, or no 2 races are ever the same. So it's always going to be different, and everything is always constantly changing. And just because, you felt good at this time last year means that if you're feeling the same way this year, that everything else would go the same, because the weather changes, your competition changes, the course changes, so many other factors. So you kind of have to just take it as it comes sometimes, and not constantly be comparing results or speed or whatever. Like there's so many other factors that make it all different that I think it's better to just kind of take things as they come.
Well, since we're kind of on this philosophical subject, whether we know it or not, we influence the people that we spoke to, during our careers, right? They remember what you said to them, what you gave them, what you did for them, how you treated them. It just reminds me of when I was 14 years old. I went to the first ever Davis Phinney, Connie Carpenter training camp. And I hadn't really started racing, at least with the USCF. That was the predecessor to USA Cycling. And I had this calendar that had a picture of Davis Phinney, the cash register, they used to call him, with his hands in the air, winning a criterium in the Coors Classic. And I asked him to sign it for me. And not only did he sign it, but he wrote something that was instantly inspiring. I have it in my office to this day. And he wrote, "To Bobby, see you soon as a star in the Coors Classic." I didn't ever get to race the Coors Classic, but I did the Tour de Trump, the Tour de Pont, the Tour de France. But him writing that, I mean, I still have it in my office. That's how much it meant to me, how inspiring of a message it was. Now that your career is over, either spoken or written, what is the most inspiring message that you've received from one of your idols in cycling?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, that's funny because I tend to like march to the beat of my own drum, and it's actually a hard question for me to answer also when the question is like, who's your biggest idol growing up? Because actually, for me, I think it's also important to be who you are. And I think I don't think I have anything in my house that had resonated with me as Davis's poster did for you. Because nothing comes up in my head, but I think for me it's more like, you can write your story however you like. You can be whatever kind of writer that you want to be and not let someone else kind of label you into something or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. That's a hard one for me to answer because I just kind of do whatever I feel like doing.
Now that you just left active cycling, you still know all the women in the peloton. I'm lately having this thing with the crystal ball. Crystal ball, is Demi Follering winning the Tour again? She seemed to be strong, right? She won her first race with the new team. Or is Kasia Niewiadoma hanging on to it? A new contender. Lotte Kopecky wants to try. Anna van Breggen is having a comeback. What do you think on a podium for the women's tour or the women's grand tours, so to speak?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of mix-ups in the off-season and trading teams and everything. And I think it should prove to be a really exciting season. I think spreading out some of the bigger powers to different teams. I think it should turn out to be a really, really dynamic season. And I think also typically like a post-Olympic year season as well. I think there's some pretty good dark horses coming through, but from what I saw at UAE, it's like the level is just so high every year. It's just going to get like tougher and tougher, it looks like. But yeah, crystal ball, man. I mean, I think you can definitely see Demi and Kopecky and Longo Borghini kind of in that top three in any of those Grand Tours. I'm not really sure what all their goals are. But yeah, I think, and then the comeback of Van der Breggen, I think brings a lot more horsepower that was lost in Demi in the team. But yeah, I don't know, it'll be interesting. It looked like she was missing a little bit of sharpness in Valencia, but obviously the engine hasn't gone anywhere. So, but it seems to me that that's kind of the top three favorites going into the Grand Tours.
Well, you've obviously lived through a lot in the, let's just say, acceleration in popularity of women's cycling. You're now retired. You're a coach. You said that maybe you're interested in becoming a DS. What changes would you like to see for the now future Peloton, since you're not included in it anymore, that would make it even better? You said that you like to do things your way. I want to hear those opinions. I want to hear
Sure.
those ideas.
Yeah. Also a good question now, because now I can think about like what inspired me in cycling. And honestly, it was like watching late night reruns of the Tour de France in the summers as a kid. I'd play from start to finish super late at night. And like it was summertime, so I could stay up late and I would watch the races. And, I learned a lot from that, understanding teamwork and why they're leading out whoever, or why someone's in the break and they're not chasing and whatever else. And so I think, in my opinion, the biggest move that women's cycling can make is TV coverage. Because then you can more TV coverage. At the moment, it's like the last hour. But once you count, interviews and watching them sign in, which is pretty useless, to be honest, you're really only getting 30-40 minutes of pure racing. So you don't get to see the whole story of, how you got to that point. You flick your TV on when the race or the coverage starts, and you're already down to like the top 30 riders that are left in the race, and you don't have no idea how you even got there, and you don't see all of the work that your teammates had put in. And I think that's also really valuable too. And in terms of kind of lifting the bottom end of the spectrum of cycling is, how do you know that these riders are putting all this work in unless you were at the race, So in terms of like, I don't know if it's lifting the minimum wage or just, just having the salary higher for everyone in the sport, I think comes down to TV coverage. Because if you don't see it, you don't know that it happened. Even if Pro Cycling Stats, shows that X, Y, and Z were in the break or whatever, it's like, if you don't see it, you don't believe it. So I think more TV coverage from start to finish, like in the Tour de France Femme, I think would be huge.
Something into the same direction, my question. If you would be UCI president for a year, would you make the women's Grand Tours, now we got all three of them, would you make them into 3 weeks or 2 weeks, or go, let's stay at 10 days, that's good for us, or 12 days? If you would have absolute power over that, what would be your point of view on this?
Yeah, personally, I think you need to, grow it sustainably. I think you can't go from 9 days to 21 days in a year. I think that jump is too big. Your training changes, your whole approach to the race changes. And, at this time, if you change it from 9 days to 21 days, what are you going to finish with, like 10 people? You know what I mean? So I would implement a rule that was like, if you're a stage race, you grow, or, if you're one of the Grand Tours, and for every year from this point on, you add a day, or every 2 years you add a day until you get to 21 days. Otherwise, it's just too big of a change, and it's just gonna change everything about the sport. So, I think for the meantime, 9 days is great, and then you slowly build that over the next 10 years to 21 days. It would be awesome. I would absolutely love it. But to go from 9 days to 21, it's I think too big of a jump to be able to be sustainable.
This may be too early to ask, but I'm curious because, when we decide to retire after a long career, there's things that we know that we're going to miss. But with all the sacrifices that cyclists have to make, I'm curious, what are you not going to miss about the sport of cycling?
Well, I'm definitely not going to miss the time away from home, all the carbs we have to eat, and the gels and the pastas. For right now, there's only pasta in our house because my husband wants pasta, but I would really not choose to eat pasta, whatever it takes. The amount of pasta I've had is just too much. Now it's more like rice and sourdough bread that I make. So not gonna miss that. Not gonna miss the crashing part. I know it's part of sport and life and everything, you know, but if you could do without, that would be preferable. Maybe that's just kind of the mom instinct coming out of me now that I'm getting older. But yeah, injuries is not fun. But I think those are kind of the top things there.
Well, I guess we also have a few things we don't miss, right? The fighting, the shoulders and elbows, and you know that the finale starts 50 miles to go nowadays. We don't miss that. I totally see that. I do miss the fitness, right? The feeling of I'm superhuman. I can do this. I do miss that, right, Coryn?
Yeah, that's gone. But that's okay. There was a time and place for that. I think I'm actually more generally fit in terms of strength. I'm actually lifting a little bit more now, not riding as much. But I feel stronger in that sense than I do on the bike. But that's totally fine by me.
Coryn, thanks a million for being our guest today on the podcast. It was fantastic to catch up and to learn to know about you and your career. And we keep all fingers crossed for you and the little Coryn.
Yeah. Thanks, Jens. Thanks, Bobby. I appreciate you having me.
Hey, folks. Thanks for listening to our podcast. There will be loads more content popping up here, including more great interviews with top guests like Coryn.
Keep dropping your questions for us in the comments and check our description below to find us on social media and Patreon in order to support the channel like these great people.